Mark. How you doing, buddy?
A double whammy. How are you, Howard? How are you?
Where are you at, Mark?
I'm obviously down in Florida.
My God, it looks like I'm in Arizona.
Yeah, I'm at your back door waiting to come for a drink after this interview.
Right. God, poor Agatha's up there in the snowy tundra, and we're down here in palm trees.
We can't tell you how much we appreciate your time, Howard. This is great.
I can't tell you how much I appreciate you guys and Agatha. Great to be on your program.
It was so exciting when Mark first said you were going to chat with us, because we're all together in the same place, but we feel so alone. So I really, really appreciate your time. And
he's drinking. He's probably got a nice cold beer there. It looked like a beer.
I'm 100% Irish. This is just straight Jameson.
I love it.
So Agatha, you're in Toronto?
Just outside, yeah.
Yeah, we're both just outside the GTA.
GTA?
The Toronto area.
Yeah, he's speaking Canadian, eh?
I'm speaking Canadian to you, eh? I'm Mark Gaylord. I'm here today with the one and only Dr. Howard Farran, and as usual, Dr. Agatha Biss. Welcome back to UPB Dental Academy's Leadership in Times of Crisis. And now we are traversing the border from Canada to US, and I want to welcome Howard, and we're humbled by having you here today, Howard. I looked kind of into your background and learned a little bit about you leading up to this. Not that everybody doesn't already know, but here's a guy who came from Kansas. He's done Ironmans. He had great influence from his father to get where he is today. And we're honored and we're humbled to have you. And thanks for being here today, Howard. And if I know I've left out probably a bibliography of things that you could add to that, share with us.
Well, you know what I actually should be the most famous for, and no one knows it about me?
What's that?
I have an identical twin brother. Completely 100% identical. You couldn't even tell us apart, but I ate him in utero. He was stealing all the umbilical cord blood, and I told him to stop, and he didn't, and I ate him. But anyway, maybe that's another
double
life.
the brain power. Double the brain
By the
power.
way, you guys are both in outside of Toronto, right?
Yeah.
And it's so funny because we're the exact opposites. Like my oldest sister is a cloistered Carmelite nun in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and I left Phoenix many times, and it went down 100 degrees. I remember one time I left here, it was like 78, and got there, it was like -10. And Phoenix and Toronto, we both have a covered stadium. Yours is because it's too cold, and ours is because it's too hot. And a little known trivia about Arizona, 10% of all the homes in Phoenix, Arizona are owned by Canadians.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, this is Canadian. I wonder if there's another town or another state that has that many Canadians. Do you know of any city that's 10% Canadian?
Yeah, they call it Florida 6 months of the year.
Oh, is it Florida? Is it mostly Florida?
Yeah, it's Florida 6 months of the year.
Yeah.
So, you know what, Howard, I know we're only borders away, but what's the mood? What's the feel in the U.S.? I speak to a lot of U.S. dentists on a regular basis, and we're all sort of trying to meet the same challenge. Is there something different going on there? What's happening with the culture and the mood in the United States?
Well, my least favorite word is the United States of America, because nobody refers to Europe as the EU. Nobody thinks Germany and Portugal are the same, or Turkey and England. And so the thing people forget is that the most populous country is China with 1.2 billion, India with 1.1 billion, then it's the United States, 330 million, then Indonesia, 228 million. And they always compare us to something. Like they'll say, well, like Denmark does this. It's like Denmark has less people than Arizona. So you can't compare Anchorage to San Fran or Wichita, Kansas to Miami.
Yeah.
And it's real. Even the Federal Reserve was set up with 9 different regional banks, because the Federal Reserve, if you talk to anybody, I got my MBA at ASU, and if you talk to any Federal Reserve guy, they say, well, the United States is about 9 different economies flying under the same flag. I'll give you an example. Oil has crashed. So that takes Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana right down the drain. And the whole economy can be in a depression. But if oil's at $100 a barrel, you'll never know it in Texas, Oklahoma. So I think it's a huge country. And I think that Trump, in his own I don't know, mildly autistic, ADD, bizarre mind. I mean, you got to give him. I don't like to make fun of Trump because I don't like to make fun of mentally ill people. Or no, I seriously.
Ratings are going up.
No, I think I mean, I'm being honest. I'm a dentist. I'm not a psychiatrist, but I definitely think there's something wrong with him. But in his idiot savant way of playing a piano while not being able to drive a car, he always knows where the goalpost is. And I think he is correct again that 51%, that's all that matters. 51% of Americans, they're home, they're broke, they're bored. They don't want to hear about millionaire celebrities, how traumatized they are, stuck at home with their Ellen DeGeneres deal. And so I have lots of contacts with lots of dentists around the world, really, on Dentaltown. And I know this state of Arizona, when it started shutting down, about 40% of the traffic went down as measured by the app phone. Now that's back up to only a quarter down. Every time I talk to someone, I go out, I say, well, how's the traffic compared to pre-pandemic? And about a month ago, it was starting to get creepy. It's like, man, God, the streets are empty. Mm-hmm. Now I can't find anybody in Phoenix that thinks it's any different. I mean, I went to Walmart yesterday. I didn't go in because I haven't showered or bathed, or I didn't have clothes on. I mean, I'm in the quarantine thing. And
naked Walmart is not good.
There was a line around the building. I mean, completely around the building, because you have to go in at 6 feet apart or whatever. So I think they ran out of money. They're broke. A guy told me at the gas station, he says, well, I got a wife and 3 kids at home, and we're out of money and we're out of food. My wife said, go to work or die. And, and so, and a little bitty country like California has the same number of dentists and people as Canada. So I look at California, I got a California on the left, and we got one laying. I look at Canada. I've always thought of Canada as like, we're down here having a frat party, and we're, the cops are about to come, and up in the loft, the Canadian is sleeping, and she's looking over the loft saying, can you guys keep it down back there? We have an exam tomorrow to 8. And we're like, hey, we still got half a keg to kill. So I know we're the crazy people that live south of your border, and and it's the same thing about in Brazil. I mean, these elitists, they don't understand that in Brazil and Asia and Africa, most people work all day to get $2 or $3 to go to the market to get food to eat that day. So when somebody in Connecticut saying, well, you guys should all stay home for 3 months, it's like, they don't even get it. In fact, I was listening to Fareed Zakaria yesterday on CNN. He said where he grew up, it had 10 times the density of Manhattan. And a little known fact about Manhattan is if all 7.5 billion Earthlings lived at the same density of Manhattan, we could all live in New Zealand. We wouldn't even have to go to Australia. And Manhattan isn't even in the top 10 densest cities. I mean, all the top 10 densest cities are in Asia. In fact, there's one city in Asia that if we all lived at that density, we'd only live on the whole population would live on the northern island of New Zealand, and wouldn't even have to go to the southern island where Lord of the Rings was filmed. So I say this, I say that they're broke. I mean, they're just broke, and they're going back to work. And so we're dealing with imperfect information. It's coming in very fast. Who knows? But I know on Dentaltown, at least half the dentists think this is the seasonal flu when it's all over. And they say 2 years ago, we lost 80,000 people, and it didn't even make the news. And these people are, the morbidity mortality weekly report is actually going up because there's so many less people driving. Driving kills 40,000 Americans a year. So the driving fatalities are down. So it's kind of like, is the cure worse than the pandemic? And when I say that, I mean, my favorite musical group is The Cure. And I mean, no insult to the legendary rock band that was inducted to the Hall of Fame. But I really think America has done a U-turn, and I called it the night I couldn't believe my eyes, it was Friday night, and I was watching Bill Maher on Politically Incorrect, and Bill Maher starts going to town against the social isolation. And in America, he's like the king of the left. And I thought, oh my God. And then the following Friday, he brought on that MD Katz, who wrote in the op-ed piece, I don't understand your epidemiology. And then a guy from Stanford published an article the other day and saying this epidemiology doesn't add up. I mean, it just doesn't add up. And both of these guys think it's going to be less than flu. And it doesn't matter if I agree or you agree, because I'm not an epidemiologist. I've studied teeth. Agatha, are you a virologist or a streptococcus mutans?
Howard, she's quickly becoming one.
Yeah. So the bottom line is we're dealing we're in the high speed lane. We're driving fast. The information's imperfect. It's been going on, and I get China's deal. On that note, I'll drink some more caffeine to get
Wait, don't worry.
So Howard, it was when I first reached out to you and I said, you know, have you got time? Can we make this happen? You said, I've got nothing but time. I'm curious personally, how's this been affecting you? This self-isolation, this being at home, the good scotch. What's happening for you personally?
You know, I think that, you know, when you look at children, you know, they're into all these hero movies. They got Batman, Wonder Woman, Spider-Man, you know, they got all these heroes. The bottom line is that, you know, if you talk to any military person, and I'm so glad, I mean, I'm so lucky. I mean, America, I was born in 1962, 100 years after the end of the Civil War, 1862 Emancipation Proclamation, where that Civil War, 1 in every 30 Americans was killed. And the whole country is made of wood, and they fought with fire. And when the war was over, the whole everything east of the Mississippi River and the South was just burned down. I'm glad I didn't wake up to Pearl Harbor, where we're getting attacked by Imperial Japan and whatever the hell the Germans were doing. I mean, so I feel blessed that we're going against another species, which will pull this whole species together. And when people talk about big government and socialism and communism, what they're really talking about is our species. I mean, collectivism, communism, socialism, and, you know, collectively, I'm an individual, but I'm one of 7.5 billion species. And I think it's going to pull us together. But the first casualty of war is always the battle plan. Because once they hear a shot, 99% of the people panic. And the true leaders are the ones that rose to the occasion. So I was hearing about this in December, but I feel for the Chinese, because in this country, and I know in Canada, you know, you start the fall, you go into Halloween, and then it's Thanksgiving, and then Christmas. I mean, my God, it's 40% of retail sales. And I was reading this at Christmas. No one in America wanted to hear about this during Christmas. And then when our Christmas was finally done, China was going through their New Year. But I was watching these stores, and when I finally realized, you know, this is not looking weird, that's when I realized, okay, this is the time to leave. This is the time to get focused. So whatever energy you had regularly, it's time to double down. And I've been proud of myself in the fact that I've been reading at least 8 to 12 PDFs a day, because I'm in a lucky situation. I've owned my own dental magazine since 1994, when I was just 3 years old. And I started that. And my gosh, so I have all these dentists are sending me the studies. In fact, if you got a great study, post it on Dentaltown, email it to howard@dentaltown.com. So I've been doing 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 7 days a week, just trying to answer these questions. And my main focus, like with all species, it's the children. I ain't worried about fat, old, happy Howie, whose 4 boys turned into 6 grandkids. I'm worried about the COVID class of 2020. Yeah, well, these dental school, I imagine if you're graduating from dental school, it seems like the year really zoomed by.
Yeah, sure did.
I don't think Mark got that joke. That joke just went straight over his head. Time flies. We're on Zoom. It zoomed by.
Zoomed out, buddy. I'm zoomed and zoned. So Howard, you mentioned Dentaltown, and you've got a global subscription of.
We have 275,000 registered members, and the volume has almost tripled since the pandemic, because they're all home. Yeah. And it's so busy in the mornings. I'm starting to wonder if Pornhub doesn't kick on till noon. Because my God, from 6 a.m. till noon, I mean, it's just crazy town.
Oh my God, they're just recovering it.
Yeah.
I want to know, I'm wondering, like, Howard, what do you, because everyone's talking about reopening, and I mean, you know, depending on who you talk to, we're apparently reopening fairly soon. What do you guys expect where you are? Like, how are we coming back? Because I can't see us being able to come back in the same way that we were, you know, 2 months ago.
Okay, well, you know, you shouldn't make predictions because, you know, Albert Einstein was very, very clear that there was no past and there's no future. There's only the present. I can't walk you outside at night and point to where the Big Bang was. I mean, it's gone. It's not there. And if you ask the smartest investor in the world, Warren Buffett, who I went to Creighton in Omaha, and he was the Oracle of Omaha, he actually came over and lectured to our class in 1980 because he was friends with the dean, this Italian guy with long white hair, fun guy. And if you ask Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett, where the stock market's going to be tomorrow or a week from now, they would look at you like you were crazy. And you are crazy because the minute you start predicting the future, I mean, Agatha, did you predict the fall of the Berlin Wall? And within how many days did you predict it?
No, but you know what? I was just more referring to how you think dental offices. I'm talking more in terms of, are we going to be seeing patients the same way we were seeing before? Or do you think that our governing bodies will create regulations and, you know, spacing between patients or?
Okay. Well, first of all, I know you're Canadian, so I knew you were sweet, but when you're Canadian, you're just sweet plus. But to be an American means you have no respect for the law. I don't think other countries realize, like when they're always looking at the gun debate, the NRA debate. And I'm going to be honest here. My 4 boys, their grandma and grandpa have over 100 guns. I mean, I grew up in Kansas. I don't even know how old I was when I was so young when I got my first .410 shotgun. I don't even remember how old I was. So it was younger than I was old enough to remember. But the bottom line is those guns are all aimed at the government. I mean, they see. You know, I'm serious. You know, you talk to them about Germany. They said, well, if they would have gone into the Jewish ghetto and everybody would have had a 9mm, it would have turned out very differently. And so the Americans, I've lectured in 50 countries. I have never, if America is exceptional in anything, it's their degree of anti-government. They just cannot stand the government. And I mean, Ronald Reagan won the election because he said government's the problem, not the solution. And so in answer to your question, what's going to happen? Okay, well, here's my credentials. I graduated from high school in 80, dental school 87, and I still have my dental office 32 years later. And I have practiced my entire life under a viral endemic. I mean, I got out of high school in 1980, and this HIV thing was starting to come out. In 1980, the dentists weren't wearing gloves. They didn't have masks. And by the time I got to dental school in 87, you had to wear gloves and masks to work on a mannequin. They were that serious. And all these incremental steps got bigger. And I don't think the young kids of the COVID class of 2020, they weren't there 30 years ago to see how we migrated through this, but they were all screaming about the cuspidor. Well, now they're almost all gone. Now, when I tell you this, you're not even going to believe it, but this is a true story. I graduated in 87. When I got to Phoenix, my favorite guy at the study club was this 80-year-old crazy man, funnier than hell. He had a wig on, just crazy funny. And when you went to his office, his cuspidor was the ashtray. He had 100 cigarettes in the ashtray in North Scottsdale, and all of his patients loved him because it was the only dental office where you could smoke in the operatory. I mean, times have changed. Remember that commercial? You've come a long way, baby. Dentistry's come a long way. So the cuspidors are gone. The other thing that was gone is the city water coming in to do all your air water syringes. You know, dentists have given up on trying to keep the CFU colony formation units down. So they've replaced that with the bottled water. I think the next thing that's going to go is the general office suction line. That doesn't make any sense because you know, you got this one vacuum for 4 operatories. The first operatory, it'll almost suck you off the floor. By the 4th operatory, you can't even get the saliva out of the mouth. And you're going to need a lot more volume suction. I think that's going to change that back. But let's go back. Let me change gears completely back to the patients. So I've gone all the way through the AIDS deal that went on to kill 36 million people, and nobody Nobody, when I was in dental school, even though the first guy that died in our class, Craig, died of AIDS related from HIV. The mother of my 4 boys, her roommate at KU, who was accepted into law school and was probably the smartest young hot lawyer to ever come along, she too died of AIDS. And when this was happening, no one knew that in the future it killed 36 million people. So I'm not sitting here answering your question saying what's going to happen in a year or two, but I'll lay out where, but I should be honest. And the reason I call my podcast Dentistry Uncensored, because I really feel like, Mark, if I really respect you and admire you, and Agatha, what you've done for dentistry goes unquestioned, I think to show respect, I got to tell you what I think. And if I'm thinking with my brakes on or thinking, well, Agatha wants to think red, so I'm not going to mention blue. No, man. We're at the same bar doing the same shot of Jameson, chasing it, and I'm going to tell you what I think. So what I think is the 32 years I've practiced, America, a third of a billion people, has always been 2 markets. The cost leadership market always wins. The lowest cost airline, Southwest Airlines, 27% of the flies, the miles flown in the United States. Number 1, Walmart, Costco, Price Club, IKEA. I don't know where you are, Agatha. Are you at your home? Because it looks like you did all your furnishings from IKEA. Is that the nicest room in your house? And so Agatha's rocking it with, she must be feeling Swedish today.
Howard, Agatha has never even seen the inside of an IKEA.
So the bottom line is cost leadership's always going to win. And what I mean by that is when I got out of dental school in 1987, the insurance companies, they just told you what % they paid. So if I sent in cleaning, exam, and x-ray, whatever my fee was, they paid. If I sent in a root canal or a filling, they paid 80%. If I sent in a crown, partial denture, they paid half. And I didn't like that system because I thought it was incredibly, obviously racist. You're an employer in the middle of Toronto, and I was in Phoenix, so I had patients coming from the most Black South Phoenix, the most Hispanic Guadalupe, the most American Indian from the Salt River, the Gila River, and most white from like Paradise Valley. And the employer would buy the insurance for, say, $1 a piece. But then the insurance companies, when you submitted your own fees, so everybody pays $1, but they were only approving like $550 or $600 for a crown in the all Black Hispanic Indian. But in Scottsdale, hell, they were approving $1,200. And the dentist will say, yeah, but our costs are more. Dude, if I only give you enough money to buy a Ford Escort, you can't say it's a Ford Taurus. You're over here doing Ford Taurus dentistry because the insurance companies are paying you twice as much for the same dollar premium. So, and I got in all kinds of trouble in Arizona, and everybody got mad at me and didn't like me and all that bullshit. And so I went to those 4 zip codes when I started my own magazine, because JADA, the Journal of American Dental Association, they published like 4 of my articles, but those were like all the lame ones that couldn't offend anyone. But the meat and potatoes, they're like, Howard, come on, dude, we can't print that. And I thought, you can't print that? I'm starting my own damn magazine, and I'm going to have the first column. And I went to the most Hispanic Guadalupe, most Black South Phoenix, most white Paradise Valley, North Scottsdale, all the areas, and I bought a basket of goods. Just my regular routine shopping. It was a pack of cigarettes, a pint of vodka, some beer, some insulin-dependent diabetes needles, just bread, whatever I bought. And it was indeed, the price only varied 2 or 3%, but the fees accepted by the insurance company varied 100%, from $600 for a crown in the all Black to the $1,200 for a crown in the all. So I didn't like that system at all. So now they changed that, where they just say, hey, here's our fee, our PBO, here's our fee schedule, and they're statewide. And let me tell you something. If a fee schedule isn't statewide or countrywide, I know who it favors. Whatever the dominant tribe of people is. If you're in Australia, I know it's not favoring the Aborigines. I can, without going there, I can assure you that's not happening. So now we got this flatter system. And so when consultants talk about that the number one overhead is labor, 25%. I don't know if they're stoned, or I don't know if they have a head injury. I mean, your number one expense is that you charge $1,000 for a crown, but you signed up for a volume discount. So volume discount makes sense. I go in your store and buy one, and I buy one item. Then Agatha comes in and says, well, I want 100. I want a discount. Well, yeah, that's even legal. The Supreme Court says volume discounts are legal. So we get that, but the volume discount thing is dead because it relied on. So back to overhead. Number one overhead in America is 42%, and it's your adjusted income from your PPO. And a lot of dentists, I can't tell you how many dentists in America will tell you, well, I don't take any PPOs. Are you a Delta provider? Because their website says 95% of the 200,000 dentists in America take it. Oh, yeah, I'm a Delta provider. Well, do you just submit your own fee, dumbass? Or do they tell you how much they'll pay? So these dentists are all in a game of volume because that's a winning strategy. I would rather do 100 crowns for $650 than 1 crown for $1,000. We all see Walmart, IKEA. We get it. So what happened is you got to go to the patient psychology, and that was we became a commodity. And I've been yelling this for at least 20 years, and no one will listen because I listen to people when they talk. So when you're around normal people and they say, oh, your uncle, his appendix ruptured and they took him to the hospital, everybody gathers around, well, tell us what happened, and they tell the whole story. Never once do they ask in Phoenix, well, did you take him to the hospital in Chandler or the one in Gilbert or the one in Phoenix? They just think, well, dude, they took him to the hospital. Isn't that what hospitals do? No, I can't tell if that's Corona or weed. It's one of the two.
That's in the opening. That is so in the opening.
If you know the difference between a Corona cough and a weed cough, please email me at howard@dentaltown.com. But the bottom line is we got so good, they assume that if you were in a car wreck, well, they had to bring an ambulance. They had to bring a helicopter. No one's saying, well, where did they take you? So we got so good, the consumer said, well, obviously Agatha's a doctor. I mean, the only difference between me and Agatha on our dental degrees, I got my dental degree, Eagle Scout, and Black Belt on eBay, 3 for $9.99. And Agatha actually went to school and everything and took notes. But the consumer thinks we're all the same. So if we're all the same, we're a commodity. What is a commodity? Things that trade only on price. A gallon of oil. When you get a gallon of gasoline, you don't care if it's from Alaska, Iran, Saudi Arabia. You don't care. When you get a bushel of wheat, a corn, or my favorite, a pig. I love pigs. I mean, you put bacon on a salad, you can fix it. I mean, anything tastes better with bacon. But when I eat a pig, I don't care where he's from. I hope he's from Charlotte's Web. I hope he's your favorite pig. I don't care. The bottom line is, so they thought we were like that. So the big urge for dentistry for the last 30 years, starting with Quest in the 80s. Agatha, do you remember Quest?
I wasn't here in the 80s.
Well, Quest was, when the Berlin Wall fell, 89?
Yeah.
89. Quest started in California at 80, and they could go into any office, and, the offices were all like 1 op or 2. And just by getting them to add 1 more op, they could increase their production collection. So how does that work? Well, I'm going to go numb up a patient, and then I'm going to jump in this room and do a hygiene check, then jump in this room and seat a crown, then come back here and prep, and then leave, and the assistant pack cord. Dude, for 1/2 of America, that's the same. Half of America doesn't even care. I got 4 boys, 3 of them, they're actually sad that their dad's afraid of a virus. My mom is 82, and she's like, Howie, this isn't like you. Why would you be afraid of a germ? I mean, this just does. So that's half of America, and about 89-90% of the Farran family, which when we have a reunion, to show you how bizarre that is, the CDC shows up and starts doing DNA testing. They're trying to find out, are they related to a goat or a swine or a camel or?
You know what, Howard? Arizona's 3 hours behind us, and I think you just caught us up.
Yeah, so half of America, Agatha, if you want to go out there and start talking about how, you shouldn't drive your car because 40,000 Americans will die in the car, and you shouldn't drink alcohol because of alcoholics, and and they start taking all your risk away. I mean, that's not Americans, and they don't give a shit, and especially don't give a shit when you got a stay-home wife with 3 little kids, and the wife's showing you her empty wallet and the empty refrigerator and the empty cabinet, and you have 1/3 of a billion people, and you're going to start talking about Denmark. I mean, half of Americans don't even know where Denmark is on a map. So it doesn't even matter. I remember one time I was talking to a patient about Canada, and she looked at me. She said, I can't make this up. She said, Canada. She goes, is that over by Albuquerque? I'm like, it actually is. You just go to Albuquerque, turn left,
and go that way.
Go 1,000 freaking miles, and you are right there. So the bottom line is, in answer to your question, how's this going to change America? Well, it's not going to change Bob Fontana's Aspen's 1,000 offices. It's not going to change Rick Workman's 1,000 Heartland Dentals owned by KKR. It's not going to change Stephen Thorne's 600 Pacific Dentals. It's not going to. And a lot of people now, some of these private equities are in trouble because they're too leveraged. We weren't even a week into this collapse, and Finest Dental, the largest, one of the largest PPOs in the UK, completely collapsed. And I was chasing down the owner and his accountant and his lawyer, and he never returned an email, and his accountants and lawyers were saying, well, did he reply? And, if he didn't reply, they don't want to reply. And I said, well, can you post something? And they're like, but anyway, the bottom line is, if you're really leveraged, you could be in trouble. So I think the United States has 211,000 Americans who are alive today that have a license to practice dentistry. And I'm in ground zero for DSOs because Arizona was the most progressive state, which I applauded, when Governor Ducey passed a law that said if you're licensed to practice in another state to be a nurse, and basically for anything, all these states, when Adam Smith said when 2 men get together and talk, they're always conspiring against the masses to raise their prices, and that's the whole form of government. But the bottom line is, so all the DSOs rush to Arizona because they might have a big challenge, like say they're in Florida and they really want an endodontist. But the only endodontist they got is in Texas, and he's like, well, I don't want to go take the Florida board. I mean, it's got a 40% fail rate. And then they'll say, okay, well, let's shift all of our money. So, and then at the other end of this long tail, 5 states aren't even 1% DSO. So I don't think their business model is going to be touched. What I think is going to be touched is Agatha's model. Because Agatha, in her 20-year career, how long have you been practicing dentistry, Agatha?
24.
How long?
24.
24, which is amazing since you look like you're 28. And
just
amazing.
A lot of Botox.
A lot of Botox.
I know. Yeah. It goes. I mean, I've told people 1,000 times, no one believes me, but this is all natural. I had hair transplants and Botox, and I'm wearing a wig. This is all natural. But the bottom line is, in Agatha's complete career, you have cost leadership. Well, I buy on price, and I think all doctors are the same. And if I am having a heart attack and my insurance says I go to Lutheran Hospital, that's where I go. That's half. The other half are always market differentiation, and that means I can differentiate Mark from Agatha, from Howard, from the other 200,000, and I don't like the other dentists. Usually when they don't like the dental office, and I'm not saying this because I'm the dentist, but it's usually who's ever talking to them about money, because money's the emotional trigger. Most research on money says that if we're going to have a conversation about money, we might as well talk about sex because it's very emotional and all this kind of stuff. So they don't like the staff. It's too far away. They thought you heard them. That tooth doesn't match. I mean, does that match? I mean, it's supposed to match my liver spot. How come it's darker than my liver spot? I mean, I had an 88-year-old man that wanted me to redo his crown. And I'm like, dude, you have a liver spot the size of $50 on your forehead. No one's looking at your tooth. They're just thinking, that thing looks like the shape of Texas. Were you from Texas? You look like Gorbachev. And but the bottom line is they paid value for the American Academy of Cosmetic Dentistry. See, I've lived through 2 viruses, HIV and now SARS coronavirus too. But I've also lived through a lot of revolutions. And the first revolution was 1980 when Bob Ibsen, founder of Denmap, published his book on adhesive dentistry. And that started the revolution of bonding agents, which were white. And then Ivoclar got a hold of it with Bill Dickerson in Las Vegas. And the AACD popped up at Wisconsin. And it was an explosion. So there was and then a lot of people like me went and got their diplomat in the International Congress of Oral Implantology. And I got my fellowship in the Mission State, my fellowship in the AGD and the MAGD, and they thought, well, this is quality and he's cosmetic and it's implant. But now those are going to be completely less weighted.
You know, it's interesting. Howard is a man of few words, and that's what I love about him. Howard, you know what, just if you were to give some messaging out to you've got 275,000 people at Dentaltown. Hopefully this expands the audience even more and they become aware of your cause and what we're doing. If there was a message that you could give to dentists going into the next 3 months, 6 months, in the next, I'm predicting the turnaround of 18 months to 3 years, what would be your one concise message you would deliver to dentists so that they can succeed and thrive in the new normal?
Okay, first I have a PSA announcement. Hey, is my granddaughter okay? Hey, Raya, come and see Grandpa. Are you okay? Well, send her down here. I want to see her. I want to show Agatha my granddaughter. I want to show these 2 Canadians what a real granddaughter looks like. Okay? The real. But here's my message that number one, there's always been 2 markets, and the dentists never got it. They always did peanut butter and jelly marketing. For instance, they're coming here. Hang on, I know I have the most perfect granddaughter. Come here, Raya.
Showstopper.
She's having a way.
Come on, Raya.
The problem with her is she's about half like her mother. And so, you know, that's she's only a quarter like her grandpa. Come say hi. Come say hi.
Hey.
Hi.
She's got some Lysol.
She's got Windex. That means she must have gone to Quase's course. She's Greek. She's spraying everything with Windex. Can you say hi, Agatha and Mark?
Hi. She lost in the water fight, so she's angry.
She's not. These are not the best of times for her. So here's the deal. Like, okay, so they say they buy on price. So you sign up for Medicaid. About a third of the U.S. dentists are on Medicaid, and they're only giving you like $100 for a filling. So I was like, okay, so you're going to do amalgam, because amalgam, these cavities, they all lose to biology. They don't lose from physics. You're always talking about building a bridge and your prep and putting your, your collar around there like a barrel of Farrell. And I'm not talking about Will Ferrell in a barrel on Christmas. I'm talking about a metal ferrule around a barrel.
I'm confused.
Yeah,
I'm confused.
Well, there's Will Ferrell. You know Will Ferrell in Christmas Story, the comedian.
Just say yes. Just say yes.
You don't know who Will Ferrell is? Do you know who Will Ferrell is?
Yes, I do. I'm only kidding.
Okay, so Will Ferrell, a lot of people spell the Ferrell in dentistry like Will Ferrell, Ferrule.
That's funny.
No, it's Ferrell. And but anyway, so I say, well, these fillings all fail from biology. They get attacked by a bacteria called Streptococcus mutans and P. gingivalis and all that. So amalgam is half mercury. That's antibacterial. You'll never find it in a multivitamin. And the other half is silver diamine fluoride, tin. What is stannous fluoride? That's tin. Stannous is tin. So I'll say, well, an amalgam's $1. I don't need a rubber band. You're on Medicare. Average amalgam in America lasts 38 years. Your average composite lasts 6. And I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, yeah, but I got my fellowship with the AACD and I used a rubber dam and I did everything right and mine lasts forever. Oh, okay.
I'm glad we had this conversation.
It's like, but the deal is they're not identifying their market. So I go in there and they're doing Medicare and they're doing PPOs. And then I do the math. And they'll do a Medicare filling for $100, but it costs them $125. and then they'll do a PPO filling with Delta for $190, and they didn't make $80 profit because you had to take $30 of that profit to pay for your rent, mortgage, equipment, build out, computer, insurance, dental assistant, staff, because these dentists never knew their costs. And I'd always say pick one. It's kind of like a dentist would say, well, I'm taking McDonald's Medicaid, but we don't get any. We're talking about your daughter's prom night. Well, we're not on prom night. We're not getting any business. So why don't we start putting a chandelier in McDonald's and putting some tablecloths and get a butler, because we're McDonald's, but we're kind of a 5-star, so the dentists, they just can't frickin' focus. And the ones who focus do it faster, easier, higher quality, lower cost, and make a couple $100,000 a year. But if I'm serving steak, and I'm getting paid for hamburgers, and they do this with amalgam and composites on Medicare. I mean, and if you actually think that your composite lasts longer than amalgam, please just please turn in your dental license.
Howard, two things. When we come to Arizona, we can't wait to have a drink with you and carry on this conversation at length. And I want to thank you, because all the information is I could see the passion in your delivery and what's going on, and you've got so much to share. And I actually took notes. That's the first time I've taken notes when somebody's been speaking. If you want to say one thing to your dentist and to our community, what's that closing today?
My closing is only to the children, the COVID class of 2000. You can come out, there's 150 DSOs, and I know they only talk about the big ones, but the average DSO, it's really just multi-location group practice. The average DSO only has 3 locations. They're not going to change at all. Their patients, including my 3 of my 4 sons, they don't get about any of this stuff. The other half, that one independent practicer, they're just going to have to remember, and I'm just going to read you some stats real quick, and that is, the average specialist, the average oral surgeon, that's 448, periodontist 330, endodontist 307, orthodontist 289. And if you own your own practice, the average dental specialist makes 320, average general dentist makes 197. So if you don't want to come out this year, go specialize. And a dentist who owns their own practice makes 244, and a dentist that's an employee makes 144. So you're going to make $100,000 a year more if you specialize, and you're going to make $100,000 a year more if you own your own practice. So what I would do is I would come out of school. I graduated May 11, 87, had my office open September 21. Now these millennials who've had, I grew up on a set of encyclopedias that were printed 10 years before I was born. And this millennial has Wikipedia with 90 million updated pages. And what do? They walk around the swimming pool 5 years before they decide to dive in. I walked out of school, broke ground on my practice, had it open September 21, and I meet up with them 5 years after school. They've had 5 different jobs. They hate their life, and the only reason they don't hang themselves because they don't have enough money for rope. And then they finally do what I told them to do, open your own practice. So you're going to have to pick your market. If you're on Medicare, Medicaid, knock off all the composite crap bullshit. Go to amalgam and $100 zirconium crowns. And if you're going to have your own practice, the game of volume's over. So there's no PPO, there's no insurance, there's none of that stuff. They're going to come in and there's no waiting room, and they're going to feel perception that you're serious about American Academy of Disease Control Dentistry, the new AACD, and then you're gonna take their temperature, even though half the cases that are transmissible, they're not even symptomatic, let alone have fever. It's all stupid, but you're gonna have to make them. My satisfaction equals the perception of what's happening minus what I expected. So satisfaction equals perception minus expectation. They're expecting not to die. So to have a $20 an hour assistant set up the room, and then a $40 an hour hygienist set up the room, and then go get the patient. I could have had a $20 an hour assistant seat up this room. But now I got a $40 an hour assistant, a hygienist doing it, and then she seats the patient, and then she needs someone to record the probes. So now she calls a $20 an hour assistant with the $40 an hour hygienist, and they're doing a cleaning where Delta's only going to give me $60. Does anybody know math? So they're sitting there, and then when they go get a hygiene check from Agatha, you know what the average wait for a hygiene check is? 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It's all dead. So now you're going to sit there and the assistant for 20 is going to set up the room, go get the patient. And then the doctor's going to walk in. He's going to look like he's Neil Armstrong's twin getting ready to walk on the moon with all his spacesuit on. And then she's going to set up the room, seat the patient, take the x-rays. Doctor's going to come in and probe, and then doctor will scale. And the doctor will be in there about 15 minutes. Then when he leaves, the assistant can do the polishing, the fluoride release, all that kind of stuff like that. And I just want to close with this. There's only 3 publicly traded DSOs on earth, and I've met every one of them on location, one in Melbourne, Australia, 1300 Smiles, Pacific Smiles, Q&M. None of them had hygienists before the pandemic. And you know why? Because of the obvious. When it's a new patient, you spend 15 minutes with the patient and they convert to treatment. And then they come in every 6 months till the end of time, and you go in there for a 4-minute recall exam. Hey, you got a cavity, you broke it down, and they don't get anything done. So these boys, and by the way, Heartland couldn't go public. They have too much debt. Bob Fontana can't go public. He has to. These boys, they would be trading on NASDAQ tonight if they could. They can't. But Snapchat can. And, you know, Snapchat was designed to send you a frolicking picture that disappears, and that can go public, but not dentistry, because their overhead is outlandish. You never go into a business that's capital intensive and someone else sets your price. You go into a business that's low capital intensive and you can control your own price. So healthcare is screwed. So the bottom line is they took out the hygienist because they said, if we can keep that dentist in the room for 15 minutes, every exam has the value of a new patient exam, which is about 3 times the value of a recall exam. So I think if you're you're either gonna be volume with low prices and low margin, or you're gonna be low volume with high prices. And in the last month in Phoenix, Arizona, I got friends who are just staying open with their dental assistant. Toothache calls, they come in there, just them and their assistant. They do a root canal, build up, and a CERAC crown. The whole appointment's 3 hours. They pay $2,500 on a debit card. And my friends are doing 1 or 2, sometimes 3 a day. And they're saying, dude, I did 7,500 yesterday, 3 patients, 9 hours, and my break-even point was 500. So right. If you're going to be a game of volume, nothing's changed. I would just say lower your costs. Knock off. Why are you placing rubber dam? By the way, I do all my dentistry under a rubber dam. I want to make that clear. I tapped it on the ceiling. I nailed the rubber dam, and I've been under it for 32 years. And my gosh, so at this point, I don't even know what question I'm answering, Mark. You asked me to say something.
All right, Howard.
I don't know what that Tobler bar is, but that's not a candy bar. It's a triangle. Okay? It's a long triangle, and it stresses me just looking at it.
Agatha, close us out, girlfriend.
No, thank you so much, Howard. I'd love to chat with you again. Thank you for watching, and look forward to another one, especially with drinks next time.
All right.
Howard, we'll see you in Arizona at a Dentaltown meeting.
All right, Mark. Thank you so much for the invite. It was an honor to be on your program.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Agatha.
Take care.